saying, right? You can't even deal with
well, that's what you keep saying. So,
you are so far right.
We're going to have to get into one of these substance debates, but right now we have to listen to Delegate Peace.
You're not going to be giving me your social conservative stuff, I hope. Anyway, joining us now, Chris Peace from New Kent, House of Delegates member. Good to have you with us, sir.
Good morning, and I tell you, she's making me feel a little self-conscious about how I'm going to speak on this radio interview. So,
you sound fantastic,
Chris. I mean, was that brutal or what?
I tell you,
Goodness gracious!
With friends like that,
man.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Like that, who needs enemies?
Put your big boy pants on. You're good.
That's right.
I mean, it would make you. It's making me self-conscious. It's like. Hey, look, I stutter, so you can't make fun of how
it's not the stuttering. Right? There's something about his tone. He sounds angry all the time.
Well, he's been endorsed by 8 out of the 9 newspapers in New Hampshire. He even got the Quad City endorsement in Iowa, even though he hadn't been there. So I think that's pretty good. So we're focused on the Virginia General Assembly here. So
that's
I know
right.
You are. So we'll say. So anyway, I think though it's going to come down to Kasich, Trump at the end of it. The delegate piece, so we'll see how it plays out. Look, a couple issues I want to get into. I know you've got an Air BnB bill. I want to be sure we have a lot of time for that, but I have to get to the gun safety compromise laid out on Friday at a press conference by Terry McAuliffe. Truth in advertising. I'm in favor of this deal. I think it was brilliantly done. And look, I'll tell you the other thing, delegate piece. When the two sides on each extreme hate a compromise and they both hate the deal, it's probably a good thing, right?
Well, I think that's a general rule. I know my district was very upset by the Attorney General's findings, his opinion on reciprocity, and that sparked a backlash in both House and Senate. And I think it's really that strong, united front that we, as Republican caucus members in the House and our Senate Republican colleagues, showed that, forced the governor's hand. And, it has become a bipartisan solution, but the best part of it is that, we do have full reciprocity back. Obviously, we have legislation that's going to have to come to implement the deal, but the term sheet has been agreed to. And I think generally speaking, it is a good thing for Virginia gun owners, for the Second Amendment. And I'm very proud of our leadership for having the foresight to try to work through and find a solution and common ground on the issue.
Look, I think it's a solid compromise, and it makes sense for all sides. And look, this is what I said to State Senator D. Steff earlier. We operate, Delegate Peace, in a divided government. I mean, this is reality. We're in a divided government in Virginia, and so you have to compromise in order to get anything done. And I think the compromise that was made makes a lot of sense. We're going to have Senator Reeves on tomorrow. It's his bill in the Senate. We're going to flush it out. I've got Governor McAuliffe coming up in about a half hour, so stay with us. Okay, Delegate Peace, I want to get to your Air BnB bill. Everybody knows what Air BnB is. If not, it's basically an app that allows people to stay in people's houses in lieu of staying in a hotel. It's gained popularity. It is illegal in the city of Richmond. But your bill, which is going through, is trying to put some structure around Airbnb. Can you kind of explain what your vision is?
Absolutely, and I appreciate your interest. I heard that you're staying in a hotel in Iowa, so maybe you could look at Airbnb next time. But this is an emerging, sort of disruptive, innovative technology, much like Uber, that allows people to use their primary residence to make a little extra money. And I mean, who doesn't want to make a little extra money these days? Airbnb and Flipkey and other platforms allow a homeowner, a primary resident homeowner, to get on their platform and sell a night or two, usually short-term stays, to the general public. Our bill seeks to bring the existing practice into light, because there are about 4,000 people operating Airbnbs in Virginia, and mostly they're in localities that either don't have an ordinance or have said that it's not permissible. So we want to make the use of primary residence legal. It also sets up a centralized structure with Virginia Tax to collect and remit retail sales and use and the transient occupancy tax, and then turn that money back dollar for dollar to localities. So we believe that, unlike other times where we're criticized for unfunded mandates, this statewide platform, this uniform law, will actually be a funded one, and localities will be the beneficiary of it. There are a number of myths out there, I think, mostly promulgated by the old line industry, just like taxi cabs opposed Uber. We have members of the hospitality industry, hotels, complaining that this is going to usurp local zoning. Now, actually, the bill places a layer of protections on top of existing zoning, things that regulate noise, number of cars parked, how many guests you can have, and when those guests can come. We're very mindful of the health, safety, and welfare of certain neighborhoods, of all people, and we believe this is a way to bring current operators into light, bring more transparency, and honor property rights while providing a benefit to localities to invest in schools or law enforcement, whatever their priorities may be.
Delegate, let me tell you some of the things that troubles me about your bill. I don't think it's got anything. I have no problem with Airbnb and the comparison to Uber. I think I understand that. But if you look at your bill, and it doesn't allow for the government knowing actually who is renting. So basically, how does a local government know where the houses are? Therefore, there's no way to really enforce the collection of taxes, because basically you've set this up where Airbnb is on the honor system. So they have to basically tell you, well, this is how much money I've collected in taxes, and then they just mail a blind check. Now, this is what bothers me about this, okay? I went to Airbnb, Delegate Peace, in Richmond. Airbnb is illegal in the city of Richmond, okay? It's illegal. And I go to Airbnb in Richmond, and I see 300 advertisements for Airbnb housing in Richmond, and it's illegal. So I say to myself, if your bill basically says Airbnb is on the honor system and that they'll pay taxes based on the honor system, you've got a city where their service is illegal. They've taken 300 advertisers on it, which means the people advertising on it are aiding and abetting in illegal activity. And now I'm supposed to trust them. I don't think this is fair, and I don't think this is a level playing field for regular hotels and others, that they have to play by the rules. So, how do you reconcile that?
Well, I think you proved your point. You went on and found however many, 300 operators. I think the city government could easily do that with or without legislation. This seeks to regulate primary residences only, so it's not going to interfere with a locality's ability to prohibit what they call legal hotels, sort of that apartment building with a number of vacancies, guys trying to generate a little revenue through those vacant units. Localities can still prohibit that use, and this bill does not change that. The tax department has signed off on the accountability or audit structure in the bill. It's just like they collect and remit on retail sales and use. The software that's used by Airbnb is very widely known and well respected by the tax department, and they're taking on liability by stepping into the shoes of the operator to remit the tax. The tax is collected on the booking or at the booking when that confirmation is made online. There are codes that are assigned. Without getting into the weeds, taxes they have the ability to cross-check and to test those addresses and codes so that they know exactly, whether $1 comes from the city of Richmond or $1 comes from Hanover County. So we do have assurances and protection in terms of the collection or remittance. In terms of enforcement, the use doesn't change. If I go to my home to bed at night, or if some other person steps into my shoes and uses my home for a one-night occupancy, that residential use has not changed at all. And people talk about, having fraternity parties and, a bunch of people coming in that, you don't know. I mean, that really happens any time. Frankly, fair housing protects against such discrimination. But we've put protections in the bill so you can't have a big party, actually more than 8. That's the cap in the bill. And, I talk about people having parties. When I was in college, if I had a party at my mother's house and disrupted my neighbors, they would call the police. There's nothing different. If there's a concern, just like anyone, you can notify local law enforcement about an activity or a noise or something that's happening that is contrary to your quiet enjoyment. But we specifically address quiet enjoyment, safety, noise, how many guests you have in or at the residence, as well as have assurances from the tax department on how you collect and remit taxes. So, as I said, this is something that will go on with or without the bill, and what this bill does is provide a mechanism for the localities to benefit from it.
But you do have to admit, Delegate Peace, that your bill does not allow for the tracking or enforcement of the taxes, and that's really the issue. I don't understand I don't understand why you would go forward with something, and you're basically turning the entire tax revenue system over to Airbnb on an honor system basis. No one else has that.
I would say a whole lot of people have it, actually. How many people sell things on eBay or on Craigslist? There's a lot of cash transactions out there in the world. People are not reporting as income. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. That's the way the marketplace is. None of those people have the type of system that we're putting in place where the state tax department is saving localities hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if not millions of dollars, in that type of collection and enforcement, and have vouched for it and have verified and said this is exactly the way we do other types of tax collection. So really not much is changing except for the fact that people will know who they are, the operators will be in the light of day, they will be doing it lawfully, and localities will be benefiting financially from that activity as they are not now.
Okay, so if you take the taxi industry, for instance, right, when we had the big debate over Uber, for instance, we had about a 15-month study in Virginia on what the impact would be. What's the rush to judgment here? Why not wait, do a committee, study this, make it enforceable? Why this rush?
Well, actually, the bill has an enactment clause that allows for the very thing that you described, where the Housing Commission would look at all of the other types of properties and types of uses that are really the major concern that localities and others have. So these would be second residences like vacation homes. Unfortunately, I think Delegate Taylor and Senator DeSteff's legislation, which is from the hotel industry, actually does more harm to those areas of Virginia Beach that they represent, because it lumps in the vacation home, it lumps in the second residence, and I think some of those very nice places in Pungo and other areas may end up having a greater concern about the very far-reaching aspects of their bill, whereas ours is very limited to primary residence. So that could be a condo or a single-family home, but it's never going to be an apartment, it's never going to be a second home, it's never going to be a vacation home, and so that, I think, is much more narrow. The enactment clause allows the Housing Commission to study, working with stakeholders, local governments, and others to do this. Look, the Virginia Chamber supports the bill, the Virginia Tea Party Patriots Federation supports the bill, so not often, as you described the gun legislation, do you find such maybe opposite ends of the spectrum or unique coalitions developing. So this is property rights, this is free market, this is a way for localities to also benefit. I think it's a win-win.
What about the fact, though, that if you rent out your home for over 45 days, now you're considered to be a business in the state of Virginia, which subjects you to the B-poll tax? This is also now, it's not traceable. Somebody could rent their home out forever. There's no enforceability or tracking in this thing.
Right.
So, I mean, why would anybody? I could rent my home out for 100 days. I don't have to get a business license in Virginia if I don't report it. I don't have to pay the B-poll tax, but yet other people that are operating legitimate businesses for lodging, they have to get a license. They have to pay the B-poll tax. There's no hiding it. So my concern with this is just that the whole entire thing that's set up is on the honor system on both sides. And why doesn't Airbnb, if they're so confident about what they have, why don't they simply say, make it a public listing of the participants they have?
Well, rentals of more than 30 days, as you brought up, that allows localities to keep any existing regulatory authority in those areas, so there's no change to that. I can rent my house to someone for a year, have a lease agreement with that person for a year, and not have to do anything. If I get income from it, then I would report it on my federal and state income tax, but there wouldn't be a B poll, there wouldn't be any of those things. In fact, Hanover County doesn't even have a B poll. So, really what you're talking about is more government encroachment on private property rights, and we're trying to allow people to have that existing use and right that maybe the local governments don't appreciate.
Well, two things, Delegate Peace, I want to say. First of all, they are already getting their residential real estate taxes, aren't they?
That's absolutely right.
Number two, believe it or not, one of my daughter's friends is here working on one of the campaigns, and she used an Airbnb here in Iowa. So
we've got several legislators here using Airbnb right now.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, I think that what people don't understand is this is a generational shift. This is, people are changing the way they do business, and we're either going to have to adjust or it's just not going to work. So.
Well, this is not going to be the last of this kind. You've got Uber, we got Bitcoin out there, we've got crowdsourcing, we've got all kinds of things that never were in our minds 10 years ago, and this is not going to be the last one. Government's always going to be behind the curve of innovation. This is an opportunity for us to catch up a little bit and allow people to enjoy their God-given property rights.
Well, I'm just looking for a level playing field, Delegate Peace. I don't think your legislation allows for that. I hope it's modified.
Well,
Thanks
I appreciate that. Hotels offer a lot of amenities, and bed and breakfasts offer breakfast. Airbnb at someone's home. You come in, you go to bed at night. I can understand why you'd want to regulate health and other things about a hotel, but trying to step in the shoes of someone's personal home and mandating those types of, I think, extreme measures, I think, would not be, in America's best interest.
I would tend to agree.
I want to thank Delegate Chris Peace for being with us.